Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Ryan Alcantara with USC Rossier Career Services, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Rossier Leadership Series, Pursuing Careers in Consulting with Your Rossier Degree. We are delighted to be joined by two of our Rossier alumni, Dr. Jennifer Edic Bryant and Dr. Ed Barron, to discuss their journeys from a Rossier degree to the world of consulting. Before I introduce our guests, I would like to first invite my colleague and co-host for this program, Tom Artiaga, to say a few words about today's event.
Thank you very much, Ryan. We're very excited to have Dr. Bryant and Dr. Barron share their expertise with us today. And our Rossier Leadership Series was really created to bring thought partners together to support future leaders, to empower those already in leadership roles, and also to highlight the impact of Rossier Trojan Family. And the response for today's webinar has been wonderful. We have over 370 alumni, students, faculty, friends, representing 32 different states who've registered to join us today, which is incredible. So thank you for those who submitted questions as well during the registration process. We've shared those questions with our speakers in advance, and they will try to incorporate responses into their remarks today as well. So if you have any additional questions, please use the Q&A feature to submit your questions, and we'll try to respond to those today. So thank you again for joining us. Ryan, I'll hand it back to you to get the program started.
Thank you, Tom. I've also been delighted by the overwhelming interest in today's program. Consulting certainly strikes a chord with the Rossier community. A Rossier degree is a wonderful launching pad for doing consulting work, and there are many pathways to consulting. It could be a side hustle, being part of a firm or entity, or even starting and managing your own business. Our guests today, having taken this latter route, but over the course of the conversation, I know we'll discuss the pros and cons of each of these approaches. We'll begin with our guests providing background on their journeys, leaving time for your questions in the second half of the program. So without further ado, I'll begin by introducing Dr. Jennifer Edic Bryant, a co-founder, managing partner, and education strategy consultant for Academic Solutions Group, bringing passion and conviction about the power of education. Dr. Bryant has spent over 31 years committed to creating equitable opportunities for young people to reach their full potential. Her education journey began as a classroom teacher and extended into a broad range of educational experiences as she moved through the ranks into district administration. In 2022, she co-launched Academic Solutions Group, LLC. She has provided leadership and instructional design to multiple education organizations. She successfully led initiatives focused on improving science instruction, authentic parent, family, and student engagement, and improved collaboration, collaborative communities of practice. She is a published author and presenter. Dr. Bryant holds a doctorate in educational leadership from the University of Southern California, as well as a master's of arts in education and a bachelor of arts in psychology from the University of California, Los Angeles. Dr. Edic Bryant, welcome, and thank you for joining us to share your story.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's just a pleasure to be here this evening. I see some familiar names joining, and it's great to be able to share my experience with alumni and current students at Rossier. I want to go way back to the beginning, and you'll understand why in just a minute, and tell you a little bit more about my journey. So I started, yes, you heard correctly, undergrad degree and master's at UCLA. So I started as an undergrad working for a pretty prominent psychometrician in the education field, Dr. Lee Burstein. I worked as a secretary, needed a job, and kind of got my feet wet in education. And really it kind of spurred a a passion for the field, and what led me to continue to go into that as a profession. And like a lot of people, started out as a teacher, started teaching in a middle school. And one of the things that I did was I volunteered and took advantage of as many opportunities as I could, whether it be trainings, workshops, whatever area I could grow in or experience that I could have leadership committees in my district. I even did the bus tour for new teachers, starting my second year there, helping, bring in new folks to our district. Was sat on negotiations on the teachers union side, volunteered for implementing projects and had ideas of my own. And I was lucky enough to work for leaders who really allowed me to take on my own individual projects and try things in my teaching, instruction, and even with our site. So I taught for many years at middle school, also taught at high school level. Again, continue to always take advantage of learning more about the public education sphere and being part of experiences that would grow me. So that, I wasn't sure I was going to consult. I wasn't sure where I would end up, especially in my early 20s and early 30s. But all of those things, as I look back, really prepared me for what I'm doing now as a consultant. I did have a time as an instructional coach and worked with teacher education and focused on that when I was at Rossier working on my doctorate. And then went into administration in a district level administration position. And I was a director of metrics and LCAP. And as you know, those of you in PK-12 California public education know that the LCAP, the local control and accountability plan, is essentially the strategic plan, and it touches just about every aspect of the district. And so once again, my role allowed me to learn a lot and grow a lot. Prior to getting that position is when I was at school at Rossier, and that's originally where I met Edgar, and maybe more on that later. But after graduating is moving into that position in the district office, continued again, same pattern. Where can I learn more, grow more, volunteer for county, statewide initiatives and committees? Really learned a lot more about implementation, obviously, of school funding. And so all of that, 31 years of California public education experience, coupled with some amazing mentors, people who I continued to be in contact with for some of them my entire career, really kind of led me to the point where a little less than 2 years ago, decided to take that jump, that transition into consulting. And it was not easy. I think it was months of going back and forth and just kind of in my mind trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do, and also get the courage to take this new leap. In the meantime, started talking with one of my oldest and dearest friends, who I started teaching with back in those middle school days, and she had gone on into school administration and then went on to work for TGR Foundation, Tiger Woods Foundation, and Kathy Burr and I went back, and so we were reflecting on our time together and really talking about what was next. How can we have an impact on education, even more so than what we had thus far? And so she said, let's do this consulting thing. And so she got a website, and we built our academic solutions group. We're joined by Jason Porter, who's our third colleague. And so we have had just an amazing time, really tapping our different networks and all of our different experience to do jobs across the state, across the country, and even some things internationally, things that we never imagined we would be able to be doing. One of the things that we do is we bring a lot of different strengths. As I said, Kathy, she worked in a nonprofit sector and led an amazing organization and built Tiger Woods learning centers, across the country, and had that experience. I a lot of deep administrative and PK-12 experience in my background. Jason is a brilliant scientist and had teaching and administrative experience, as well as teacher training in STEM. And so we really bring different strengths and work on some projects together. And then some we do individually, based on our individual strengths and what opportunities have arisen for us. I think there's a lot of benefits. If those of you that might be thinking about partnerships, there's a benefit of working with others, especially when you've always worked, in my case, for a district with other people. But it also is more time consuming, and there are dynamics of working with other people that are different. And Edgar and I have two kind of different situations with that respect. And so we can share a little bit more about that. We also do a lot of talking about who we are as an organization, what our goal is. There are different goals in consulting. Some people want to build a big consulting firm and grow into a consulting company. Others, for now, we're happy to have the three of us working and just picking the projects that we're most passionate about really empowering people to improve and grow in their education organizations. So I think the greatest barrier I faced was just overcoming that fear. And as Edgar so aptly shared with me, months and months ago, years ago, that, sometimes you just have to bet on yourself and your experience and your expertise and take that leap. And I think that was probably one of the hardest parts about moving into consulting. Right now, I'm doing work in schools, in districts. I'm working with a statewide initiative, community engagement initiative with districts across California. Academic Solutions Group also works with some after-school programs doing STEM teaching improvement and building communities of practice and professional learning communities. And then recently, very recently, we've been awarded a grant through the Mandela Washington Fellowship, and we're going to be traveling to Eswatini in Southern Africa. It's a little country surrounded by South Africa, and we are going to be working with NGOs there, many of them serving in one form of education or another, but really helping them grow and develop a collaborative community of practice where they can improve in their implementation of services to their community. So that's a big, long picture of my experience. And I went way back because I wanted you to understand how much of all of my experiences and education really poured in and prepared me for the work I'm doing now. My journey may not be the exact right way for everybody, and I think there's different fits, but I'm really excited to be able to be here, share with you, be a thought partner, and talk to you about some of the things I've learned, and I'm still trying to learn and figure out as we go forward. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. What an impressive journey. We will hold questions until our next speaker, but feel free to post your questions to the Q&A for Dr. Bryant in the chat, and we'll, like I said, we'll get to those. Now it's my pleasure to invite our next guest to the screen, Dr. Ed Barron, who is the founder of Dr. Ed Barron Consulting. An accomplished organizational consultant, diversity, equity, and inclusion leader, and executive coach, Dr. Barron has over 30 years of experience partnering with a wide variety of organizations. An expert systems analyst, Dr. Barron is well known for leading executive teams through the process, through processes that transform their strategy and culture, lead to continuous improvement, improve organizational effectiveness, and drive results. In other words, he helps organizations be better so they can do better. Dr. Ed has a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from the University of Laverne, a Master of Arts degree in Organizational Leadership from Azusa Pacific University, and a doctorate in Educational Leadership from the University of Southern California. In addition to all of that, I had the pleasure of having Dr. Ed Barron in my EDUC 707 Administration and Higher Education class when I taught. I think, Ed, that was about 10 years ago.
That's correct.
Dr. Ed, it is a pleasure to have you with us and look forward to your story. Welcome.
Ryan, thank you so much. Tom, thank you for organizing and curating this time for Jennifer and I to share with folks that we are literally excited to be with, current students, former students, folks in the Rossier community, and just to share a little bit about what it is we do as consultants, our journey along the way, et cetera. Ryan mentioned that our first meeting was when I had him as a faculty member for higher ed administration. I told him this then, so it won't be a surprise to him, that I told him I couldn't imagine anybody else doing a better job of teaching that class. I got a lot out of that class, continued to influence me. And so I'm thankful that I get a chance to continue my relationship with Ryan. You can tell by my resume that I'm not in the education, the formal education area as far as K-12 or higher ed. I spend most of my time in the for-profit business arena. And with 30 years of experience, I'm going to try to take a little bit of time to condense that and let you benefit and share some of my journey. But I think it's relevant because consulting looks like so many different things and can look like so many different things. So for those of you that may be looking at some non-education related opportunities to consult, I hope to bring some insight there. But also, I think there's some things about consulting that we'll tease out along the way that are transferable. So whether you are in the business, for-profit, nonprofit, education space, there's some things that I think you'll find useful tonight. I think it's helpful for me to start off a little bit with my academic journey. First in my family to go to college, first in my family to graduate from college, and there was a lot I didn't know. So I kind of stumbled through, and that may be too drastic of a term, but I sort of felt my way through the education system by just keeping my eyes on people that were ahead of me. And so somebody that was kind of ahead of me in my education academic process, say in high school, that went to community college, I thought, well, there's a possibility to get to community college. So I kind of did that. While I was at community college, I found out that you can transfer before receiving your associate's degree. At least in those days you could. I think it's probably pretty much the same now. So I decided to transfer to a state school. And so now I wound up at a state school as a sophomore, still feeling my way around, not really understanding how to navigate this thing called higher education. And one of my friends at the state school I was going to transferred to a UC. And I thought, well, there's possibilities there. And so I will tell y'all, if you know me, or as you get to know me, I am a shameless Trojan. I like to say that I was born a Trojan. And so I always wanted to go to USC. And so when I found out that my colleague was transferring to a UC, I thought, well, I'm going to see if I can transfer to USC. And sure enough, after my junior year, I transferred to USC, got accepted, came on campus, had an interview in the academic department. Somewhere along the line, realized that I wasn't going to be able to afford USC, and not knowing the right questions to ask, not having the right information, not having this impetus for transformation in my own life, I just walked away. I literally walked away. That summer, I got a job, a really good paying job in the aerospace industry, and literally just kind of walked away from college. So yeah, I dropped out. That's the actual truth. After my junior year, did really well in the aerospace industry and decided after 10 years to go back and finish what I started. And so I did. I went back and did a non-traditional degree at the University of Laverne. I think they called it I forget the title they had for it, but it was a continuing education kind of a deal for professionals. Got my degree there. Years later, got a master's degree, and some years or actually months after that, got my doctorate. But along the way, I realized something that had been working in my life that I wanted to be able to kind of package and offer other people, and that is this idea of borrowing experience. Because that's actually what I did each step of the way. I borrowed somebody else's experience until I can make it mine. Think about credit. Think about how you need credit to get credit, but if you don't have credit, you can't get credit. And so there's this thing called co-signing, which is not always the right financial strategy, but the idea is I have something that you need, and we'll let you borrow it until you can make it your own and develop your own. So it influenced two things in my life: a drive and desire to be in a position to where I can do that for others. It also made me curious about other men that looked like me. I became really, really sort of fascinated by the academic accomplishments and social experiences of African American men in higher education. The spaces, by the way, that tend to be predominantly white spaces, white narrative kinds of spaces. And so that was my research project for my Rossier degree, is looking at the academic outcomes and social experiences of African American men in predominantly white institutions. So that kind of continued my interest in, again, how do I place myself in a position where I can be the holder of experience and I can use that experience to help benefit others. And after a number of years and doing a variety of things, I've had a career in aerospace, I've had a career in nonprofit, kind of the conference organization where we did large scale national conferences. I've been an educator. I was in the classroom for about 10 years at Azusa Pacific University, done a number of things. And so I try to combine the best of what I've learned in each of those kind of opportunities, but also recognizing the through lines in each of them, whether it's nonprofit work, aerospace work, academic, work in the classroom. I began to identify the things that I was really good at, or at least I felt I was really good. I had a propensity for, and one of those things was being able to see things from a systems perspective, recognizing that anything that kind of is apparent in our life, if you will, can probably be defined as a system. At least two agents or elements working together, interacting together, that produce some outcome. And so I've always been interested in that. And so if you think about organizational structure and organizational performance, you can see where systems ideas and systems theories come in there. The other idea was process. That if you, and I think one of my mentors probably told me this early on, if you pay attention to process, the product will take care of itself. So I really began to kind of hone my interest and skill in the area of developing processes that would yield the kinds of outcomes that people are looking for. And then leadership has long been a fascination of mine as well. From the time I slipped my first Little League glove on and Little League hat on, I thought, I'm kind of a natural at this thing called leadership. I don't mind being out front. I want to be an example. And so that's the way I'm wired. We're not all wired like that, but it is my wiring. And so I wanted to lean into the things that were already natural tendencies of mine and begin to package them together. And I thought, consulting has interested me for a long time. And now's the time. Now is the time to bet on myself. As Jennifer said earlier, that's one of my life mottos. I want to bet on myself. I've bet on a number of other organizations and leaders in the past, and none of those things are inherently wrong or bad, but really felt it was time for me to bet on myself. And so the space I deal with, as Ryan read in my bio, I deal with organizational development, leadership development, culture, teams, all those things that make an organization successful. Those are the areas I deal in. I have the fortune to work with a number of clients, different types of clients, from aerospace, particularly NASA, cosmetics, media production, professional sports teams, finance, tech. And the reason I'm able to work with so many types of organizations, and we'll tease this out as we respond to some of your questions and answers, is because what I offer my clients is what I believe is kind of the secret sauce to organizational performance and excellence, regardless of the industry you find yourself in. And so I've done a lot of work refining and identifying the things that I do well. I love frameworks, and so I've developed frameworks. The idea of focus is important to me, resisting the temptation as a consultant to be all things to all people, because it doesn't work. And now, granted, when you're just starting out, you're trying to drum hook business. And so if somebody asks you if you understand how to tame alligators, you're liable to say, yeah, I can tame alligators, and then go read a book on taming alligators. But the reality is you want to spend a lot of time understanding and identifying, as I have, what you are really good at and what drives you, what gives you lift, right, and interests you and holds your interest, and that you have the experience to speak into and bring about some benefit and result and improvement in those particular areas. I'm a lifelong learner, so that's another thing I love about consulting, because every client's different. I learn something about their industry. I learn something about them as humans. That I fold that back into the process. I also learn about myself. I also learn that everything doesn't land well, and you have to have enough of yourself to go back and think about those things that didn't land well, didn't land like you thought they were going to land, or didn't land at all. Make those kinds of corrections. And so both Jennifer and I try to carve out time on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, to do what we call business development. And it's not just figuring out how to drum up clients, it's really doing some reflection around our own performance and what we could do better maybe next time, what landed, what didn't land, and why. And then the benefit of working in close proximity with another outstanding consultant. I'm speaking about Jennifer as being the other outstanding consultant. We get a chance to exchange notes and bounce ideas off of each other and share materials. And even though our field of consulting is different, I mentioned early on in my remarks that the through line, from a principal standpoint, you can find a through line regardless of type of client that you're working with. Some things that just make sense, where teams and organizations and cooperation, collaboration ideas like that are concerned. And so I will say this before I hand it back to Ryan so we can address some questions. The idea of consulting, it's a huge, huge concept. And so I just want to put a disclaimer out there that Jennifer and I are two consultants that are making our way in this field. We love it. It's worth it. We are, I think, experts at what we do, and we are informed with respect to the field of consulting. But it is broad, and it's in some ways the wild, wild west, because people are jumping in, especially post-COVID. And so we'll do our best to bring our perspective and our informed perspective that would benefit you all that might be considering a career, or, as Brian said, a side hustle in consulting. So thankful to be here. Looking forward to the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Ed. Appreciate you sharing your incredible story. So let's open it up for questions. And I'll say we've got some items in the chat, and there's certain themes I'll say that have come up. And so I want to get into some of the nuts and bolts. But one of the areas that you all picked up on was kind of the experience you developed that in a way maybe certainly prepared you for consulting, but was that strategic? And I'll point out a couple of the specific questions that have come up. A notion of, I've got no experience with consulting, how do I start? And I think part of the message is leveraging the experiences you have. But again, if you could talk more about that. And then, what should people be doing now in order to maximize that and prepare for, the possibility of entering consulting.
Good, good. Jennifer, why don't you kick us off?
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think we definitely, as I told my story, my intention was really to show you how throughout my time working in public education, I took advantage of every opportunity to learn and grow and develop. And Edgar mentioned, the same thing. And so that is one of the ways that you can really start out is grow yourself, be this consumer of learning and understanding in the area in particular that you're interested in, but also even beyond that. And I think coupled with that, if you have a smaller, maybe you're younger and you just don't have as many years, you still can have other experiences. And I know that there are firms where, instead of starting on your own, you might consider applying for a consulting job. In public education, in education, there are many consulting firms out there, TNTP, West Ed, Curriculum Associates. I mean, there's opportunities to get experience consulting with a well-established large consulting firm. Or if you have a lot of experience and expertise, partnering with someone like I did, or launching out using your own network is a great way to do that. So that's kind of my response to that. Edgar, I'll let you add on.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree. The fact of the matter is we're always acquiring knowledge, whether that's formally or informally, and most of the time it's both. You're acquiring knowledge in your academic field of study or the one that you just completed. You're acquiring knowledge in the work that you do. One of the things that we may not do as well that I would encourage us all to do is what I call catalog your learning. Take an inventory of what you've learned so far. It may seem a bit mundane to you or underwhelming. I don't know, but if you stop to think about the remarkable people that you've been in the presence of, the things that you've gotten an opportunity to do, some of the failures, some of the things that didn't go well, that really taught you some tremendous lessons that you can now sort of reframe and repurpose. And so catalog your learning and then own your expertise. Own it. If you are good at something, own it. Dive into it. Drill down. Learn everything you can. And then as far as experience, Jennifer, you're right. There's ways in which you can attach to organizations to learn consulting. There's also consultants out there that you probably know that are doing what you like to do, that don't mind you shadowing them or having a conversation or a cup of coffee. I think most of us in this kind of work, at least my colleagues, we love sharing information. I can pick up the phone and call any of my consulting colleagues and ask them anything. And I've never been turned down with, well, that's a proprietary or company private. We're always sharing information because it's a lot of work to do.
Great. Thank you both. A lot of questions on kind of the logistics in getting started. And so certainly, there's a broad spectrum of where you end in, but if you go in the direction of creating a business, what resources did you all determining the structure of that, and what would you recommend folks to explore as they're considering that as an option?
Yeah, I think that's you almost, there's so many ways you can go, right? And so it's really understanding, and I'll give an example here so we can try to ground us, understanding the kind of impact you want to have, how you want to work, and who you want to be responsible to. Jennifer mentioned earlier the benefits of having an organization, albeit ASG is small, but there's still a trio of folks that are getting after things. And there's a pace you have to set, and she'll talk more about that in a moment. I'm what you call a solopreneur. I am a one-person show. And part of the reason that I'm doing that has to do with my age. I'm not interested in building and scaling an organization. I'm more interested in having the highest level impact that I can with the clients that I serve. So as a solopreneur, all the responsibility falls on me, including invoicing and accounting and all those kinds of things that I have to manage. But I don't mind doing that because I know that I'm doing it for me. So the questions that we got earlier in advance had a lot to do with, do I have to be an LLC? Do I have to have a license? Is an S corp? All those kinds of things. So first, I will say, in general, licensure is not required to be a consultant, but it may be field dependent. There could be a certain field that requires some kind of certification or licensure, and you need to check that out. The field that I'm in does not. My expertise, my experience, my client referrals, they're my testimonials that I use to do my business. Do you need to have some kind of organizational incorporation? Talk to your tax accountant to determine what's best for you. There's myriad opportunities. The last thing you want to do is saddle yourself with a organizational harness that you don't need, that's not benefiting you. So find out what fits you the best and then go with that.
Yeah. I'll just add on it. I agree. It's really about what you want to do. Even though I'm working in an organization that has, the three of us working together, we've talked a lot about what we envision Academic Solutions Group being, and right now, and at least for the future ahead, all three of us agree we're not looking to build a company. So the way we organize ourselves is we're not trying to move in and be a competitor with, the Westeds or Learning Forward or something like that. We love having the impact we have and being small. We're an LLC because there's more than one of us. And so that provides limited liability, but it's kind of the easiest, least expensive route to go. Sole proprietor is just as great. Obviously, Edgar sharing his experience. I think it's about deciding how you want to function, understanding how each of those work. How does an LLC work? How does a corporation work versus an LLC? Maybe you should incorporate. What are the risks and the benefits of each? And then just being really good, because I think whether you start as a side hustle or you start small, just by yourself, you probably aren't going to have a huge amount of capital and money to start off with. So, you can start as a sole proprietor and then expand if you need to into other formats. I know there was also a question somebody asked about nonprofit, and that's another option. You can start a nonprofit. That comes with building a board and having to take care of those kinds of logistic things. And that's a decision, again, that you want to make. The upside of that is you can qualify for a lot of funding and grants. And I know I mentioned that we got a grant through the Mandela Washington Fellowship, but this really is not a grant in the traditional sense where you apply and get. It is part of an international exchange program with, I think they're even businesses, but organizations, particularly NGOs and leaders in sub-Saharan Africa who come and do some professional development and some educational experience and then return to their countries. We tapped in, found out about that, and were able to partner with a leader of an NGO in Eswatini and did a virtual professional development exchange where we kind of brought him in and worked with him on his organization, and he did some things with us. And then this next step was that there was funding available for us to go and then work with him in his home country and work with others, NGOs. And so it's, that's the grant. And I know someone had asked about that in the question, but you really want to think about what your long-term goal is and then what format of business you want to organize. So hopefully that answered some questions. You do need to keep really good records, though. I think I know Edgar's going to smile because I am spreadsheet, build your system, create a system for keeping track of your business expenses and all of the things you need to. In the beginning, it might just be you doing that. And so, set aside time to do that as well, so that you don't find yourself in more trouble than you really want to have to be dealing with.
So we have a lot of questions about marketing and building your client base, but before we jump into that, there was an interesting question that came up of, making that decision of cutting the core of, the world of benefits and healthcare, et cetera. How did you come to that decision?
I was holding on by dear life. I would literally, I 31 years of getting a paycheck every month and having healthcare. And so it was a huge shift in my mindset. And it really was my mindset that was keeping me from jumping. I had Edgar and some other Rossier friends of mine who I continue to network with and meet with, and they just continued to challenge me. So I'll tell you my experience. And again, everybody's experience isn't the same. Some people have spouses who have healthcare, and so the healthcare is not an issue because they are able to continue to get healthcare through their spouse. In my case, I went ahead and signed up for the California Covered and Obamacare. Found it was fabulous. I have virtually the same coverage that I had when I was working. Of course, part of what I bill clients, part of what I have to incorporate into my expenditures is the cost of that. But it is a sliding scale. So when I wasn't making a lot of money in the very beginning, my amount was smaller. And as you make more, you contribute more. But that was some of the thinking. It's a real mind shift if you've been working as I have for a long time with another organization.
Yeah, and I think that's the key word is mind shift or frame of mind or mental model, however you want to put that, when you're going out on your own. And so there are ways. I think what you hear Jennifer saying, there are ways to conquer the healthcare sort of boogeyman that's out there. There are ways and resources, but before you even get to that, we tend to ascribe a measure of security to working for someone else. I want you to think about that for a moment. We subscribe a measure of security in working for someone else. And we've learned through COVID as a great teacher that we can be autonomous, that we can be resourceful, we can be independent and not so dependent. And I don't want to be too sort of dark, if you will, but that security that we have in working for someone else can be ended at any point in time without our say-so for myriad reasons. So I just raise that to say, when you're thinking about betting on yourself, don't think about letting go of safety, but maybe you are laying hold of security in terms of betting on yourself, trusting yourself, growing yourself, and then reaping the benefits for that.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So to the question of building your client base, at the point you decide, this is the structure I want, this is the area that I'm going to go into, what's that process of activating your network and identifying a strategy to build that business?
Yeah, that's good. I love the living example for Jennifer, and I'll start there and she can drill down. She left her job literally one day and turned around the next day and consulted for the same organization. And I use that as an example. Start where you are. We all have if you've been in the workspace for a while, and I will tell you, consulting with thin experience is difficult. But if you've amassed some technical professional experience, start right where you are. Let people know that this is what you're interested in doing. Do some pro bono work, right? Throw it out there saying, hey, this is what I do. Let me come into your organization and spend a few hours, what have you. someone said years ago, and I don't remember who it was, that people remember you the last place they saw you. So if somebody still thinks you're working at company ABC and having a blast doing it, and you may not no longer be at company ABC, they're not going to engage you. So let people know, communicate, let them know that you are consulting. When you do good work, and this, Jennifer and I have both experienced this, and we hear it from people in the industry. When you do good work, you don't have to advertise a lot. Word of mouth and referral. The best compliment that I can get as a consultant or executive coach is when somebody says, "Hey, so-and-so said I should call you." I love that, right? And so I don't advertise other than hanging out my shingle on LinkedIn, which is good, and you should do. Have an updated LinkedIn site, but let people know what you do, then do it well, and then encourage people. Hey, if you have friends, family members, whatever the case might be, and growing your network that way. You got to be active. You got to care about it. You got to be involved with it.
Yeah, yeah. Your network is really powerful, whether it's the Rossier network, which is fabulous. Going to events, things like that helps you build that network. And I was thinking about networking, and when I say, use your network, when I network, I often do more than just take a card and get contact. You want to connect with people, even if you're not working with them right now. Reach out, send them things, and be more than just someone that exchanged cards, but that kind of builds a little relationship on which you can then offer, and perhaps some good opportunities can come up. I know we both, Edgar and I, don't do a whole lot of advertising, but I have a friend who has a company and does a lot of consulting, and she does a lot of social media and advertising and goes to conferences and does booths. And so, but she wants to grow a very large company, and she has a curriculum, and she goes out and does professional learning around that. But I think word of mouth is very, very powerful. So do a little bit of both and see what works for you. I actually did get a job through LinkedIn, through someone who found me on LinkedIn. I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, at a for-profit company wanting to get into the education sector, offering mental health resources for youth. Reached out because of seeing my LinkedIn, my experience in California school funding and local control and accountability plans, and just wanted to hire a consultant who had expertise in California school funding. And so it does happen, but you just really have to weigh how much time you're spending and then how much work you get. When you have very few clients, you can spend a lot of time doing that. I use a lot of the people that I got to know over the years, and Edgar, he's correct. People don't know you're out there. They think you're still working, back in Azusa Unified School District. So you definitely want to let people know, reach out, and then attend events and where you can share some of what you're doing, and then ask people, hey, if you can you share with somebody, 5 people that principal. I worked for a school, and the principal said, I'm going to reach out to my sister who's a principal in another district. And so just those kinds of referrals are really, really helpful for building a client base. Definitely.
Great. And we were planning to end right at 5, but we've got a lot of great questions, and we want to just give some extra time. So and we talked with the panelists a little bit before this, so I wanted to be sure to just give you a heads up. We're gonna run a little bit longer. So a couple of other questions on this kind of initial start related to how do you set pricing, but also how long did it take to identify that first client? And how did you go about kind of developing the curriculum? So that whole kind of that first client, developing the curriculum, setting that initial pricing. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I Edgar mentioned my first client was my former employer. So remember that every experience is like a job interview, never burn bridges. And so that's an important kind of note. But I think I actually did some consulting prior to fully leaving my job. I had a couple of opportunities to do some side consulting through two organizations in California. And that way I kind of got to feel kind of the taste of that. And then it gave me some experience in consulting, right? I could say I've worked for the School Employers Association of California now, because I was asked to participate in a training. So if you have a chance, your first client can be someone maybe that you worked with prior to fully leaving employment with someone else and starting, consulting full time. Our work at Academic Solutions Group really is about helping organizations grow and improve and empower them to better serve its students. And although we're growing and we're dealing with other organizations, one of the things we do is we don't have a packaged curriculum. Some people might. And so we come in with a process of, if I'm helping a school, it really revolves around building capacity, for example, for teachers to go through continuous cycles of improvement, to work collaboratively, to improve in an area that school or that district has the need to improve in. We don't come in with this package deal. And those of you in PK-12 education know that there is no magic, do this and everything's going to work. We want to work alongside you, build ability in you to do this improvement work, focusing on your area, language learners, STEM improvement, and build up your skills to do this work in an ongoing cycle so that we can eventually slip away and not have to be there consulting with you, every day for the rest of, the existence. Pricing was, I did some surveying around, talked to some people I knew who were consulting, but because I was in a school district, I got to see how much people were charging. And I kind of use that as a gauge for how I would price. But just a real quick reminder, early on, you might price a little lower, and that's understandable. But be fair to yourself and don't forget those added expenses. You are going to be paying your taxes out of that money that you're bringing in. You are going to be covering your healthcare costs. So you want to factor into that. You can go do hourly rates, but you can also go by project. I've done some things hourly. It takes a lot more management of tracking and monitoring and billing, which I do all myself. So, or you can do by project. And it just depends on the organization and what the project is. I found some contracts. Again, you can look at contracts that have been used. I'm happy to share, samples we use as a template and develop the scope of work based on really meeting with the leaders, finding out where is their need, understanding how then we can bring in our work to help them meet their goals. So pricing is, I would say one of the best pieces of advice. Again, Dr. Edgar Barron was my consultant is don't jump around, fix your price. You'll know if it's too high because nobody's going to hire you, right? And you can inch up, but also survey around as much as you can, especially if you have an ability to look at in your field what people are being paid. So, Edgar, how did you do your pricing?
Well, I want to talk about the psychology of pricing, of value in yourself, because that's what it comes down to, right? I mean, you can, and I agree 100% that you should gain as much intel as you can to determine what the market may bear. But at the same time, here's what happens to most of us. We spend time in our professional careers with somebody else telling us you are worth this much. Here's this band, we call it a salary band, and this is where you fit. And I get that there needs to be some regulation around that, but it really sort of hinders our ability to say, but how much am I worth? How much is the knowledge and experience and personality and likability and all those things that matter when you're consulting? How much is that really worth? So I'll tell you, I was meeting with a friend of mine that's probably, she's probably half my age. Yeah, maybe not quite half. She was a consultant, still is a consultant with Deloitte. She's a Marshall grad, by the way, and doing really well. And we were going over resume prep and how to get past initial screen and all that kind of stuff. This was a few years back. And she told me, she said, she goes, you know how much how much my hour would have cost you if I was billing? I said, no, I'm curious. Or I may have asked her, how much would this hour would have cost me? She said, $850. I almost fell over. But people pay $850 for an hour of consulting from a Deloitte consultant. And so that really influenced the way that I set my pricing, because here's what I did. I said, you know what? She's got the degree from Marshall, respect Marshall. I got a degree from Rossier. I've got a doctoral degree. I've got tons of experience. There's no substitute for gray hair. My hair used to be gray before it wasn't. And I thought, I'm going to set my price here. And one of the things that I rarely do is negotiate price. I work with people that are willing to pay for what they think is valuable. So that kind of, I won't say that limits the kind of customers I take on, but it certainly, it kind of moves me out of the nonprofit space, because nonprofits typically can't afford to pay the rates that I charge. But again, once again, the psychology of setting a price, it freaks people out, because I have a hard time asking for that, because no one ever paid you that. But that doesn't mean you're not worth it. So I really want that to sink into the folks that are with us this evening.
Yeah. And I work in the nonprofit public education. So I tend to be a little more open to negotiating, talking. I do have a set rate. And I do, though, if I had a school that wanted to hire me to do work with all of the administrators this year, leadership training and development, so they can then do instructional leadership with the teachers. And she had her budget, and my original proposal of, after we talked and put together the package of what we could do and what we could achieve and accomplish in the year, she's like, oh, I only have this amount. So we were able to negotiate. We changed a few things, and of course, that's fine. But I think there's something to be said for, keeping it within a window, because if you spend a lot of time planning and prepping, you remember you're needing to pay yourself. So those are things to also consider.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to try to squeeze in just a couple more questions here, but I want to get into the area of dealing with conflict. And so, have you had situations, or how do you navigate situations where clients may not believe that you've achieved the desired outcome, and how do you protect yourself from those kinds of circumstances?
Yeah. Okay, so this is not conflict between Jennifer and I. This is conflict with a client. Okay, because that was a little too personal. So, okay, so client. I've been really fortunate that I've had great rapport with my clients. But what I have run into is that a client may make a decision to go in a different direction that you're recommending, or not fully implement something that you've recommended, or think that they have done what you've asked them to do or recommended, but they really haven't. And the way in which you address that is super important, because, Jennifer and I say this to each other all the time. Remember, you're the consultant. You have a different kind of voice within the organization. We both try to identify the deliverables that we expect to deliver, but oftentimes those deliverables have to be delivered internally, if that makes sense. Right? If I'm doing a team development, I might scope out the progression of team development that I think they can achieve, but they have to achieve it. And I think sometimes the frustration for me comes with I believe I know what they need to do and how to do it, and I can bring that to the table. It is up to their leadership to execute it, because the last thing I want to do is enable them or cripple them by doing work for them that will cease to be done once I leave the organization. So for me, I've been fortunate that I've had no disputes or any controversy on the wrong deliverable. And the way that I write my contracts, I write my contracts at 6 months increments. So I'm not engaged contractually for more than 6 months, because that gives the client a visible off ramp. And at that 6 months, I'm gonna say, you know what, we are going to go in a different direction, whatever line they want to use. But you got that 6 month off ramp to just discontinue, and that's happened to me a couple of times where clients have just, for a variety of reasons, but no conflict that wasn't able to be adjudicated between myself and the project coordinator.
Yeah. Building relationships and really understanding the organization, and also as you put together and outline what the work will be, just being really clear on what deliverables will be, what the outcomes, if I'm leading a session, here's the outcomes we hope to achieve, and finding ways to measure those so that you have that. I also have not had any issues, any type of conflict with any of my clients. So I can't say, exactly from firsthand experience how to manage that. But I think, across the board, and so much relationships, listening, talking is the groundwork for and the cornerstone for whatever needs to happen, whether it's shifting what you're doing, being willing to change, being willing to step back and remind yourself that, you don't work in this organization. If they want to do something, you can support that, or you can say, gosh, that's not something I have expertise or am able to do right now. But just really just being honest and leaving whatever the situation, whether if you have to leave it in a space where both parties feel okay, but it's just two different directions. That would be my guess as to best way to handle that. Again, I've been very lucky not to have to deal with any dissatisfied customers.
Thank you. So you are a Rossier alumni consulting powerhouse couple, having both launched your own consulting companies. I'm curious, and Ed, you got a little bit into this about kind of competition versus cooperation within the consultant community. Is both of your experience that it's generally a supportive community, or do you have to be mindful of turf issues? And then maybe if it's not too personal, to the degree which it's on the competitive side, has that ever been an issue for the two of you in your household?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to go first because hopefully I can dodge a few bullets and avoid any unforeseen conflict. So two things. First off, let me talk globally about the consulting world. I have found the level of cooperation and cheerleading and support and resource sharing to be something that I don't think I've experienced in any other profession that I've had, quite frankly. So cooperative from that level. I think I understand that if I do well, my colleague down the road, across the state line or whatever, that I make the profession look good, and it makes them look good and helps them as well. I think locally here at 1023 Lakeview Terrace, because Jennifer and I have different portfolios in terms of the types of work that we do, it is a blast learning from her and her learning from me. And I think a while back she did a thing on team development, and I developed a team development handbook, and she was able to take some of that and repurpose, and she's forever giving me tips and cues and organizational learning ideas that I can now repurpose for my clients as well. So I think we have pretty much the perfect situation. I don't feel like I'm going to get in trouble for dating somebody that's in the office, because We fixed that on March 18th. By saying I do to each other. But no, it's a blast. And I love the fact that we have kind of a different focus from a consulting standpoint, different portfolio, because it keeps my perspective kind of fluid, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't noticed a lot of competition in the sphere of public, in K-12, PK-12 education consulting. There's a lot of people out there that do similar things. We've tried to create our own niche with some of the things we've been doing around communities of practice and STEM. But I think, yeah, I find people supportive and willing to share their experiences. And Edgar's right. There's zero competition here. If anything, I love having, I referred to him earlier, maybe people caught that as, he's my consultant. And ASG, we joke that he's our consultant, when we tag along for events or something. But really, it's a great opportunity for us to work, and helping each other, even if it's not day to day. But I always know that if I need someone to run something, run it by a person who's not seen it, read it, heard about it over and over and over again, I have this great resource right here in the other side of the house.
Right.
Agreed.
Right. So as we wrap up, I want to invite our speakers to offer, any quick takeaways you have for the audience as they explore a career in consulting. I'll put a little caveat on that because there's some questions about how do I find a mentor,
Yeah.
and we'll talk a little bit more about networking as we conclude here. But Ed, why don't you start?
Sure. Thank you. Again, thanks for the opportunity. Thank you all out there in the viewer field for your patience this evening. It's been a blast. Let me leave you with an acronym I've been kind of working with lately, because I really believe the key to consulting is focus. The key to consulting is focus. And so if I were to create an acrostic, which I just did for focus, the F would be find your foundation. And what that means is, what are you good at? Identify it. Don't be a jack of all trades. You're gonna diffuse your focus and maybe miss out on an opportunity. The O stands for own your expertise. And we talked about that a little bit before. Flaunt it. If you got an expertise in something, system development, education, community schools, whatever it is, own that expertise, drill down in it, market it, etc. The C stands for communication, and that really gets to this idea of letting people know what you're doing and what you want to do. If you know somebody that's consulting in the space you want to be in, tap them and see if they spend some time with you. We do that all the time. People spend time with us. We give our information freely until it gets to the point where we're consulting, and then the fee comes in, which I'll talk about in a minute. Because somebody did ask, what's your fee? I think we should say what our fees are, so people will know that it's not a mysterious thing. But I'll come back to that. The U stands for understand, and more particularly, understand before you're understood. It really gets down to listening to your client. What are they saying that they're not saying? What are they needing that they don't recognize yet? So seek to understand before being understood. And then finally, survey your results. We talked about that earlier, to go back and see how you did and how did it work, and maybe get feedback from the client. That might be helpful, but sometimes just looking back to say, how did that land? And that seemed to be a dud. Client didn't respond well to that, or client responded great to that, and be able to either leverage it or make corrections. And then I think finally, for me, from a fee standpoint, because everybody I talk to that has interest in consulting, including Dr. Jennifer Edic Bryant, it's like, ooh, what do I charge? Great. Do all the intel you can, get over the psychological barrier of a salary band. And so my fee is $400 an hour. That's my hourly rate. And then I have a half-day workshop fee, full-day workshop fee. I have a fee also for keynote speaking. And so if I coach, I do a lot of coaching. My coaching rate is $400 an hour. I have no qualms, and nobody's better than I you're worth it. You've got the experience. If that is the case, own that expertise and go after your value.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Gosh, Edgar said it all. I mean, what the acronym is, the acrostic is perfect, because that's what I was going to say. Same things. Know what you're doing. Listen to your clients. And I think salary wise, yeah, I make half of that. What Edgar charges. I bill, if I do hourly, somewhere between $225, $250 an hour, but sometimes it's just project based. It's $15,000 for, 4-5 sessions with, leaders at a school. I really look at the amount of hours that go into it and kind of work with that. I also cover my own travel expenses and lodging, rather than work that in, so that's into my total fee as part of that hourly rate. I don't separate it out or do reimbursements from the organizations or anything.
Well, I think, Brian, are you still with me? I know I think we had our speakers may have been froze on us there, but apologize for that technical glitch. Ryan, did you want to just share your closing remarks, and we can share a few other links for our guests that are still with us?
Sure. Okay. So Jennifer and Ed, it has been an absolute pleasure spending some time with you both today. To our audience, you have their website, and they're both on the USC Rossier Career Network. They're available. We know their hourly rates, so please be respectful and mindful of that. But they are certainly happy to connect with folks. And I'll say, along the lines of mentors, networking is a key to building those relationships. And so there's a lot of questions about, how do I turn my expertise into a career in consulting? How do I gain mentors? It's about building relationships. It's about looking for authentic connections. It's about believing in yourself, but also knowing that you've got to ask for help and guidance. And so we certainly want to create community around that. And I know Tom will talk a little bit more about the Rossier Career Network in just a moment. But I hope this has given our participants, students, and alumni an opportunity to think a little bit more deeply about creative ways to apply your skills and expertise, and really own that expertise that you bring to the table, and how to hone them into careers in consulting. And so I would also like to be sure that that many of our Rossier faculty do consulting work, and so the conversations don't have to stop now. They'd be great additional resources. Should you consider a career in consulting, reach out to them. Among those professors, Larry Pikus, Dave Cash, Maria Ott, Darlene Robles, Christina Kishimoto, Greg Franklin, and there are many others as well. So I encourage you to talk to your faculty and get their perspective. And speaking about networks, let me hand it over to Tom to wrap up and share a little bit more about the Rossier Career Network, great networking tool that we have here available at Rossier.
Great, thank you very much, Ryan. I think Jennifer's joining us, and Ed might be joining us back here in just a minute. I thought maybe just as true consultants, they were sticking to that 1 hour, and they just cut us off right there.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for joining us back on there. We were just closing up here. Again, thank you, Jennifer and Ed, for sharing your experience, your expertise, your honesty with us today. We so much appreciate that. Thank you, Ryan, for leading our conversation. And I do invite all of there we go. We got them both on the screen there. Perfect. I love it. And I want to invite all of our alumni, students, faculty, and friends to continue to build your network. A lot of questions about, how do I build my network? Where do I start? Our Rossier Career Network is a wonderful platform. Alumni are signed up, they're logged in, they've indicated how they're willing to help you can search through there and connect with individuals. And then also, I think it was talked about again, like where do I build that network? Our events are a great networking opportunity. Every event is a networking opportunity. So we have several upcoming events. I encourage you to take a look at, explore. Some are sold out already, but I know we're going to be in Sacramento in a couple weeks, and we'll have a lot of different online programs as well. So thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate you being active members of the Trojan family, and we look forward to seeing all of you again online and in person in the future. So thank you, and I'll ask everybody for a fight on. Sweet. Love it.
Right on.
Thank you.
Right
so
on. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Bye.
Everybody have a great evening.